What is the angriest you've been before you just burst into laughter at the situation? I got pulled over by a local cop for going 3 miles over the speed limit on the county road. The cop was from some backwater podunk town in Ohio between 2 highways. Gave him my license and registration and I was just seething. 3 miles over? Really? He even said, I clocked you going 58 miles per hour and we've got a 55 mile per hour speed limit around here. Like, come on. I was hopping mad sitting there waiting for my ticket. Then the cop suddenly brings me my license and registration back. Says drive safe Maze. My unusual last name. Thank you for all you do. God bless. And drives away. Get to the next town. And I'm stopped at a light. I look over and see a painted sign on a storefront window. My unusual last name. Attorneys at law thanks the Podunk Town Police Force for their help keeping Podunk Town safe. I had to pull over into a parking spot. I was laughing so hard. Some random bus coincidence meant that I got pulled over going 3 miles over the limit. B. Had the same weird but last name as the town's major law firm family. And C. That family happened to be in cahoots with the local law. One of my favorite Midwestern stories. It's so Midwest it hurts. Me and my sister were having an argument. We were yelling and interrupting each other. I can't remember what we argued about, but it was bad. We were red-faced and almost crying. My sister tried to talk over me, but when she inhaled to start speaking, she choked on her spit. The both of us just started laughing so hard we forgot we were arguing. The only time spit ever potentially saved a relationship. That's hilarious. Stubbed the same big toe like 3 times within 5 minutes. Really freaking hard. By the time the 3rd stub happened, I was literally so freaking pee I just busted out laughing while bending over in pain. I was watching my 13-year-old sister. I had school in the morning and had to take our other sister to a work interview, so I trusted her to be home alone for a few hours. I called her to take the dog for a walk and for 2 hours after that she didn't answer her phone and text at all. Super worried I left our sister at her job and rushed home. She opened the door and said hi nonchalantly. I started yelling about how worried I was, except I had laryngitis. So all my yelling consisted of my squeaky hoarse voice just above a whisper. She didn't take me seriously, and no matter how upset I was I couldn't help but laugh because I wouldn't take me seriously either. Ugh, that's the worst part of laryngitis. The looks people give you and no one takes you seriously. Mostly because they can't understand you. I remember when I was about 6 or 7 watching my parents have a heated drunken argument. I can't even remember what it was about, but it was scary watching them get red in the face from screaming at each other. My mom then picked up a full ashtray and dumped it on my dad's head. The look of shock on my dad's face as he sat there covered in cigarette butts and ash while wearing an appended ashtray for a hat was priceless, and at the same time him and my mom burst out laughing and the tension was broken. The only time smoking had ever been good for anything. My girlfriend and I at the time had just broken up and got in a gigantic fight. I leave her apartment in a rage and then realized I only had one shoe on. I come back into her on the phone with her mom upset about the whole situation, and she sees me and goes, "What do you want?" I told her I forgot my shoe and she looks down and sees just the one shoe on. We both burst out laughing. I was listening to a baby cry for a very long time on a road trip where we got stuck in traffic, and needless to say it was making me pee. I mean, I understood, but it was extremely irritating. We were trying to comfort the baby when it suddenly stopped. It was because the baby was shoving cookies in her mouth whenever she stopped crying, and it looked like a teen that just went through a bad breakup. She attempted to cry and chew at the same time, and ended up spewing chunks all over the car. Got into a pretty intense argument with my dad over an already dumb issue. A couple years prior I'd been out in my driveway with my brother and I punted a soccer ball into the air. It came down perfectly on one of my car's side view mirrors and just snapped it off, so it was only dangling by the electric cords. Rather than spend $150 to replace the entire thing, my dad had me get electrical tape and super glue to put it back in place. It was fine for a couple years after that until, fast forward back to present day, it fell off once more. The argument was over whether or not I should pay for the replacement. We got pretty heated about it and neither was really backing down, but the issue was ruined when our big, dumb yellow lab got into it. He likes to walk around with his food bowl in his mouth to remind us when it's time to feed him. Sometimes that means he flips it up in front of his face so he can't see where he is going. So he walked into the kitchen where we'd been talking and went straight into a wall. Kinda hard to stay angry after that. I skimmed through this and I thought your dad was so mad he accidentally walked straight into the wall. During a walk last year, my dog randomly pulled on the leash really hard and made me fall face first into a mud puddle. It was in front of my new neighbor that I was trying to impress and I was wearing my new sweatpants. I was angry, but then I realized how funny it must have looked and how cute my dog's oh she's mad but I don't know why face was. Oh, your dog knew why you were mad. That's how they get you. Don't fall for that nonsense. Then give them pets anyway. I was 14 and my mom and I were having a huge fight in the kitchen. I was being a total smart butt. She was completely pee. There was a lot of yelling. She tells me to go upstairs and I walk up 3 steps and say I'm upstairs and attempt to continue the argument. Just an example of the ridiculousness of this fight. In walks dad from the garage, holding a 2x4 that was about 5 feet long. He hands it to my mom and gestures at me, clearly trying to break the tension with humor. My mom is so pee at this point that she snaps just for a second and comes at me with the 2x4. I had stepped back down into the kitchen by this point, so I see her coming with that 2x4 and take off running around the island in the middle of the kitchen. Tom and Jerry style. I think we did a full lap of the island before we both just lost it laughing. I was still totally grounded though. Your father grounded the tension better though. My mom and I were getting into a heated argument about how unpleasant she can get when she starts cleaning the house. At the height of our argument she exclaims nobody else cleans this freaking house except me, and out of nowhere I yell back, well thank you. I appreciate it and love you so much and I don't tell you enough. We just stared at each other dumbfounded and just lost it. I don't know where the positivity came from, but it saved our relationship that day. Wholesome. My husband was having major trouble finding something in a drawer and when I came over it was literally right in front of him. I had had a less than awesome day and was so frustrated that I angrily said your lack of attention to detail astounds me. He promptly burst out laughing and it took a second, but then I did as well. It is now our favorite go-to line when one of us can't find something. I love it. If it makes you feel better, I told my wife I couldn't find my sunglasses while we were in the car and she reached down toward the glove box. I told her, I already looked in there. She said, oh really, as she pulled them out. To be fair, when I was looking for them in the glove box it was a split second because I was driving earlier that day and the light turned from red to green. My now husband and I had only been dating for 6 months. I knew the day we met he was the one for me, but he has always been very cautious and slow moving. I was adamant that I wouldn't be the first to say I love you. One night, we were driving home from a nice dinner and Lenny Kravitz came on. I mentioned how I really liked his music and started talking about him. Eventually it comes up that his father is Jewish. My future husband is half Jewish. He had no idea about Lenny's heritages. He argued with me for 10 minutes that Lenny Kravitz was black and not Jewish. I got so mad at his refusal to accept Kravitz was a Jewish name and Lenny was half Jewish. I blurted out, I'm sorry, I freaking love you but you're freaking ignorant. He's obviously Jewish. Kravitz, we cried laughing and 3 years later we married. This is so cute, WTF. In the car, parked, frustrated, baby non-stop crying, toddler upset, feels like utter chaos. 5-year-old asks me, what's under there? Me. Trying to immediately end conversation. I don't see anything. 5-yo, yeah, under there. Me. There's nothing down there. 5-yo, yes, right under there. Me. Getting increasingly frustrated. I don't know what you are talking about. 5-yo, look, right under there. Me. Underwear. 5-yo, giggles. I made you say underwear. I could literally feel everything boiling over in that moment. And then I just laughed hysterically. I have no clue why she thought that stressful couple minutes in the car was the perfect time for a joke, but it worked out. This is so wholesome. Apparently, I used to make my dad laugh when I was in trouble as a toddler. One time, I was being pretty defiant and he told me I had to the count of 3 to do what he said. So he started counting 1, 2, and I responded with buckle my shoe. He looked at my mom, who was laughing, and just walked away in defeat. My mom has a stroke and had been in rehab for a month. She was paralyzed on her left side and my sister, my dad, and I were terrified of the next step. The day we were bringing her home, the three of us had to go to the rehab facility for training. For lunch we ate at a very full Chinese restaurant. My dad was being very hateful. It is his personality. My sis is easygoing and overall very kind. I usually am kind, but I don't put up with a lot of crap. We were sitting around the table and the conversation turned to us needing to realize how our dad couldn't do this alone. He was downright hateful and my sweet sister wasn't putting up with it. We were all fighting. We were quiet, but mean. Every one of us. My sister later recounted that she was literally getting ready to walk back to that rehab facility. Well, we got quiet and I just burst out laughing. I was trying to envision our fight from a neighboring table. We had to have sounded like complete idiots. They did not find that humorous, but we did all ride in the same vehicle. So there's that. Peas. It's been 11 years that my mom has required 24-hour care. Really sorry about your mum. My brother kept saying some stuff that was peeing me off, so I slammed the table and said to him, "If you say that one more time, I'm going to shove my foot so far down your throat I'll be diddling your butt with my toes." We stared at each other. He tried to hold back laughter. I started laughing. I got into an argument with my sister years ago, when she was still a teenager. I was getting angrier with each thing she said, and I stormed up to her and blanked on what I had planned to say. So I was in her face and yelled, "Get out of my face." My mom was yelling at me when I was a kid about cleaning the bathroom, and as she was going on she said something to the effect of, "If you're not cleaning in the next 5 minutes, I am gonna make you clean that toilet with your toothbrush." And 10-year-old me could not handle it. I laughed with the bravery and sincerity only a child could muster. My mom immediately cracked as well and we both spent the next couple of minutes laughing. One of my favorite childhood memories. Anyways, my breath smelled like crap for weeks. What a twist. This story is actually about my dad going from pee to almost laughing in seconds. My stepmom owns a couple of hot dog stands that are located in home depots, and every summer she caters an outdoor movie night event for the community of her cousin. It's an all-day event, and when I was in college they asked me to help out and gave me the money they got paid so I could have some money for school. The morning of the event, I got to my dad's house and started helping him load the hot dog cart onto the back of his truck. All of a sudden this SUV starts speeding down the alley. My dad narrowly avoids getting hit, but as the SUV passes it took out the driver's side mirror of my dad's truck. The SUV then stops a few houses down and the guy jumps out and runs into a house. My dad and I both look at each other, really confused, and then went to check out the damage. The mirror was hanging off, so we had to start figuring a way to tape it on because we needed it to make the hour-and-a-half-long drive to the event. After a few minutes the guy from the SUV comes back out and walks towards us. My dad was pretty pee and looked ready to confront him. The guy stops right in front of the mirror, looks at it, turns to us and says, "I'm so sorry, I was about to crap myself." I could barely withhold my laughter, and although my dad was still visibly pee, I could tell he thought it was funny too because he was having to hold back his laughter too. The guy ended up paying for the mirror, but the whole thing was such a weird interaction and the both of us laughed about on the way up to the festival. My friend and his mom were arguing about some dumb crap. He decided to yell at her and call her a dong for. She then yelled back at him, "What the heck is a dong for?" They broke out in laughter. Yesterday when I was trying to get my pizza out of the oven and it slid off the back of the tray and inside out calzoned itself in the bottom of my oven. A happy accident. When I was in the Air Force, we had a typical Kevin. This guy always fricked up and showed how inept he was at basic human functions on a daily basis. He comes in an hour late one day, and I was ripping into him right away, asking him why the frick he's late again. He straight up says, "I'm sorry, I crapped my pants, Sarge. I lost it." Told him to get out and get to work. Got to give him props for admitting it. I remember when I was young, my tooth was close to coming out. My mom said she wanted to see it, but in the past, she said the same thing about another loose tooth and took it out. I was of course scared. I was crying, just really angry. She made me stay still, and as I was yelling and crying, she took it out. I didn't even notice it was gone until my tongue touched it just a few seconds later, and I couldn't help but laugh. AWW. My brother and I fought a lot as kids, as is often the case with siblings. He would push me right to my breaking point and then run and lock himself in the bathroom because he knew he was faster than me. One time, after my usual pounding at the bathroom door and screaming to come out predictably did nothing, I got the idea to hide in my parents' bedroom, which is directly across from the bathroom. I hid on the other side of the bed from the door, so that I couldn't be seen from the hall. I heard him come out of the bathroom and ask my dad, who was just coming in from the garage, if he had seen me. He understandably had not, so just to be safe, my brother snuck into my parents' room and locked the door, with me in there. When I pounced on him from behind the bed, he screamed in absolute terror, and then we were both laughing too hard to actually fight and ended up making up. My sister used to do this when we were kids. We called it her death scream and it was so over the top I couldn't help but laugh. Actually, she still does it when I go to attack her at the ripe age of 28. Got in trouble at school and was being talked to with my counselor and parents. Counselor's name was Ms. Dershin, but every time my mom said her name she said Mr. Shin. Made us all laugh, but I still got that one day of in-school suspension. I worked for like 4 hours to create a large, detailed Pittsburgh Penguins logo out of parallel beads only to destroy half of it by accidentally dropping my phone on it while taking a pic. I saw red for about 0.7 seconds before realizing I was a 30-year-old man. Threw it all in the garbage and never touched the beads again. Hey, don't give up. I don't have enough expertise to understand your art, but age can't stop your passion. The first major fight I had with my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. He had already gotten in bed when I decided he needed to sleep on the couch. He wouldn't leave, so I took his blanket. Because it was January, we had 5 blankets on the bed, so he just grabbed another one. So I took that one and he grabbed another one. We finally got down to the last blanket and he wouldn't let go of it, so we were basically playing tug of war with it. Then I pulled so hard he fell out of bed, so the blanket went slack and I fell too. We looked at each other on the floor amidst a pile of blankets for a moment and then started laughing hysterically. One of the guys that I work with took over the shift of the guy that normally relieves my watch, and he doesn't realize that it is very important to get there on time, or else I get stuck there for at least 3 hours filling out paperwork for the day to come. I freaking hate filling out that paperwork. So this guy decides he was going to do a no call no show one day, and I get stuck there filling out paperwork, and he rolls up out of uniform, seemingly drunk, parked in a reserved spot that was not his, and didn't even apologize for his lateness or his state of being. I tell him if he ever shows up late again he will regret it for the remainder of the time he works at the place. Next week he does the same exact thing, only this time I had given the executive director an email describing what happened. He refused to believe it, so I aimed the security cameras to record the mess that was about to unfold. I also clocked out right when my shift ended, locked up the building, set the alarm, placed the parking lot barricade and chain in its place. It was a weekend, so no one besides my relief would be arriving, and went home, all while monitoring the security cameras from my phone. 3 hours later the dude comes screaming into the parking lot, blows through the barricade and chain, doing damage to his vehicle and the barricade, screeches into the reserve spot, the executive directors, and crunches up onto the curb, stumbles out of his truck and runs at the sliding glass door, smacks into it headlong, causing the glass to crack and then set off the alarm. He then gets up a bit dazed and starts punching the door trying to get it to open. Police roll up a few minutes later, just after he shatters the glass door and stumbles inside looking to try and fight me. Police arrest him because he is not wearing his uniform and they think he was breaking and entering. They also draw his blood and he was .13, and they have proof that he was driving a vehicle at almost double the legal limit. All the while they are trying to contact my executive director to shut off the alarm. The alarm company is freaking out, and my executive director calls me up and asks me if I can go in to clean up the mess and deal with the police. I just start laughing. I am so freaking angry because I told him that this would happen and I told him that I had just worked 12 hours and I had family matters to take care of. He needed to send in the person that used to work that shift. Needless to say, the schedule went back to normal. The idiot got arrested, convicted of a DUI and breaking and entering and destruction of property and several other charges. He got fired, criminal charges brought against him, and then sued by the organization. I got a raise to keep quiet on the matter, my own parking spot, and I get to authorize who gets to relieve me. I also sent the video to the ED and told him that this is why you need to listen to the concerns of your staff. Whoa. I had a beer thrown in my face and just started laughing uncontrollably. I was freaking pee but I couldn't stop laughing. I imagine I look like a psychopath. Local mom discovers a face fetish. So I got in this big fight with my mom during the holidays with the rest of the family around. I was around 15. She was basically putting words in my mouth and in my infinite vocal grace that 17 years later has not remedied. I tried putting two different things together and screamed "think your own mind" at her. Everyone else in the room paused at the absurdity of what I yelled and the fight was forgotten. Laughs were had but not by me. I think I ran to my room crying in embarrassment or something. My brother still likes to bring it up. Memories. TLDR. I said some stupid crap on par with normal teen stupidity thinking. Wife called me an idiot after my kids ratted me out for drifting out of a hotel driveway. Yeah, whatever, it was a sweet drift. For whatever reason, that word in particular has always made me irrationally angry and I was steaming mad for a solid hour. When she finally realizes I am genuinely pissed off about it, she apologizes and says it's not a big deal. So I answer, "It is a big deal and you know this. I would never call you names like that." And she gets that sparkle in her eye and says, "Well, you called me a dirty S last night during sex." Tried real hard to stay mad. Failed. Burst out laughing and all was well. Username checks out. I was at the movies with my 3-year-old daughter seeing some kids movie. I just bought a large tub of popcorn. As soon as we sat down and she started eating it, she went to adjust herself in the seat by pushing down with her hands. But one hand was in the bucket of popcorn. The entire bucket spills everywhere. This was one of the $15 buckets. My initial reaction was anger just because I was like, no, all of my popcorn. But as soon as I saw her face, she knew it was her fault. I just died laughing. We still talk about it to this day, lol. My husband, was my boyfriend at the time, had just came home from the grocery. I was in the middle of putting things away when we got into a heated argument. I don't even remember what it was about, but I had a box of tampons in my hand and was shaking my hand at him while I was yelling. The box came open and tampons flew all over him and all over the kitchen. He looked so terrified before we both started laughing our asses off. I don't swear at all really. One time a few years back, my partner and I were in a heated argument. I was furious. I want to say something that offended him greatly. I don't have a huge arsenal of swear words. I took a deep breath and screamed the following words with all the vehemence I could muster: "You dirty turtle." That was the best insult my brain could come up with on the spot. We both stopped, confused about what had just happened, and cried with laughter. It's now a common insult in our relationship. That made my day. I was laughing so hard my dog gave a weird look. I spent an entire day packing my house to move. I wasn't feeling great, so I went to bed early and slept in. The next day, my husband left for work at 7 a.m. My daughter, who was 2 at the time, began unpacking boxes at 7:15. I didn't wake up until 8. When I saw it all, I sat down and wanted to scream. I then started laughing because it was so ridiculous. If that 2-year made it to 3, you deserve a medal, not just an upvote. We had a really nice Cutco knife my husband's parents gave us, and eventually it fell in this gap between our counter and the wall. His parents visited us and his dad spent like 30 minutes getting it out. Fast forward 3 days, I put a magnetic knife holder on the wall and thought it would be a good idea to put the Cutco knife on. It didn't occur to me that I placed it right above the gap between our counter and wall, and it immediately falls off the mount and back into the gap, and I just started crying laughing for about 10 minutes. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.